Welcome to the Talk Healing to Me podcast. We have an amazing guest and friend on the episode today. Livi Redden is an acclaimed mentor and community builder for young adults. Her mission is to equip the next generation with the tools to be happy, resilient, and successful. Through her podcasts, speaking engagements, and social media content, Livi has taught mental, emotional, and life skills to 60 million plus people. In 2022, Livi published her first book, The Sooner You Know, The Better, a witty and vulnerable personal development book for teens and 20-somethings. Livi's podcast, Today is the Future, has helped people in more than 100 countries and features practical advice from world-class leaders. She appeared in media outlets like Barstool Sports, Success Magazine, and Build-A-Bear Radio. In 2023, Livi delivered her TED Talk, What No One Wants to Tell You About Your 20s. No, what no one tells you about your 20s, not what they don't want to tell you about your 20s. And that has gotten over 2 million plus views, which is phenomenal. Livi currently spends her time speaking at universities and events and running her online community for 20-somethings. So, Livi, I mean, that is some introduction for somebody in their 20s. You're so welcome to the Talk Healing to Me podcast. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
And in person in LA as well. I mean, how fancy pants.
I know, so fun.
We made it happen.
We did.
I have a lot of questions for you, so we're going to dive straight in. Is that okay?
Yes, I'm ready.
So, your TED Talk, What Nobody Tells You About Your 20s, has resonated with millions of people. What inspired you to give that talk?
This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult your doctor. Views shared are personal and not a substitute for professional guidance.
Yeah, well, doing a TED Talk was a goal for me really since I was a teenager. Even in college, high school, I listened to a lot of TED Talks. And so it had always been just kind of a goal for me to be in that speaking sphere. And as far as like what inspired me to do the TED Talk around that specific topic, what had happened was they had actually invited me to do a TED Talk around my book. And the whole point of it really goes back to the book, and the whole point of the book and why I started doing anything that I do was, when I was teen, like very early 20s, I just felt, and really even like going into my childhood, when we had a lot going on at home, I was having very difficult conversations that maybe a lot of 14-year-olds didn't necessarily need to have because of what was going on in my house. I just found myself very like lost and seeking answers. And there wasn't a lot of healing, growth, just like life resources for young people. It was all very, very targeted to older demographics. And I was like, I want to see behind other young people smoke and mirrors, hear that other people are experiencing what I'm experiencing and that I'm not crazy. And also, I think at the same time, I wanted to hear from more young people because I was like, I know friends around me that have a lot of great stuff to say. Like, yes, we don't have the wisdom of age and time as much, but there's also a connectedness that I think young people have to themselves, to the world around you. And I wanted to hear from other young people as well. So that was kind of the core of the whole mission it was really just more than anything wanting to provide community and feeling seen to the people around me and to myself as well.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. I mean, your speaking of struggles has really struck a chord with people. And, you have amassed such an audience, which is fantastic. And, some of the things that I've heard you speak about, I really wish were taught in schools. Is there a particular thing or moment that happened in your life that had you build this desire and this mission to make a difference for teens and 20-somethings?
Yeah, I would say it's probably two, because my real driver is just to make ideas manifest. And I've been that way really since I was a kid. And I remember when I was 18, I took something called a Sparketype assessment, and it's by a guy named Jonathan Fields, and I would love to be on his podcast at some point. He's pretty incredible, but he runs a podcast called The Good Life Project, and I took this personality test of his when I was 18, called the Spark Type Assessment, and it helps you reflect on what pushes you to do things, what your spark is. And mine was the creator, and very much wanting to have ideas, bring them into fruition, and it doesn't even matter if anybody sees them. Like, I just need to do that for me for some reason. Even as a kid, I was just always making stuff. I was building businesses. I had an inventions journal. I was writing poetry. I was just making stuff. I like organized like swap meets or we would like swap items and stuff in elementary school, and like I organized a flash mob in 6th grade. Like I was just doing stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's that core, and then simultaneously, I think what pushed me to this mission and what I'm doing now was, as far as a specific moment, I remember as I was kind of conceptualizing the podcast and the book, and initially I'd shared that with you, that I had thought about writing a book about the experience of being a young person with a terminally ill parent. I'd kind of turned away from that because I had been the ALS girl my whole life. Like we were in sort of like the fundraising sphere. I was the girl with the sick dad, and I didn't really want to make a career off of that. And so I had kind of moved away from it. But then I think the concept for what I do now was really stemmed from that, where I was in my living room with my mom, and I was living at home at the time, and I was talking about this book and this podcast that I wanted to create. And I just had like a very aha moment where I was just like, where, kind of like what I've already mentioned, I was just like, where are the resources for young people? We haven't had like a good science-backed self-help book in about a decade. Like there's not that many of them, and the people my age want this stuff. Like maybe previous generations when they were younger didn't as much because we didn't have, there wasn't social media that was able to open you up to newer things. But I was like, I know I want this, and I know other people want this. And I was excited to learn from people as well, and talk to people on the podcast, learn about myself. And that was kind of the core. Hopefully that answered your question.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you. You mentioned about your dad and ALS, and for a lot of people listening, they might be dealing with multiple sclerosis or a chronic illness, and maybe they have kids. That's certainly my demographic, and my clients are people that are dealing with a chronic illness. Having experienced chronic illness in your family as a child of a parent who has it, how has that shaped your experience and, maybe even your independence or your own mental health?
Yeah.
If you're happy to talk about it, of course.
No, I'm an open book. I'm just like in so many ways. And you want to know what's really funny? I really, truly, up until about 2 years ago, thought I came out of it completely unscathed. I was like, that 7-year experience, like half my childhood, didn't do anything to me. And I was so sure. I was like, there's not any like lasting side effects. I was like, it doesn't. And it was just it's just like, just ridiculous. And it's just been, I think something as far as the way growing up, the way that impacted me. And I think, I definitely developed like complex PTSD because our house was very, a lot of stress. Like we're constantly keeping someone alive. My dad was on a trach and ventilator starting when I was 14. When I was helping my mom switch out my dad's trach, like I'm like, not to be graphic, but like my hands are like covered in my dad's blood like multiple times a year, helping my mom with like essentially like medical procedures to like take care of his trach. And that's just my life. And so I think in a lot of ways, our family was really in survival mode for a long time. Mm-hmm. And there were good and not so things that came from that. I really learned from an early age about resilience, about what I valued in life, about living like I'm dying, you know what I'm saying? And so there were so many good things. And at the same time, when you're someone that grows up in a house that has sort of a all you're all doing is just trying to survive, Because my mom was my dad's 24-hour caregiver, and my dad was a big guy too, like 6'5", 250 pounds. Ended up, losing 60 pounds because of the disease, 60, 70 pounds actually. At the same time, there's been a lot of unlearning in regards to, now that I'm not in survival mode, teaching my body how to not be in that. And that's where meditation has been I started meditating when I was 16, and that's been like one of the most incredible things in my life. More somatic emotional processing of what has happened has been very helpful for me. And I think it's just, again, the learning to, I don't have to do everything myself. I can ask for help. Just also really balancing my nervous system, because it was so out of whack during really formative years, honestly.
Yeah. And that was probably your normal. You didn't know any
I didn't
different.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Like, for anybody that is listening that has kids, that is dealing with a chronic illness, what would you say you wished was spoken about, or that you were told, looking back in hindsight now? Or maybe it's, here's actually something that really helped me. Because, as any parent with a chronic illness, you worry and you don't want your kids to see you struggling, potentially putting on a facade. But ultimately, kids are a lot smarter than we give them grace for.
Yeah.
What would you say to that, or what would you have liked to hear?
It's funny as you say that. I'm often someone that's like so quick to like, especially defend my mom and like the way she did stuff. Because also when you're a kid, I don't know, she was like my hero in a lot of ways. And as you get older, you kind of learn that they're a person, But actually, when I look back, something that I wish maybe would have been different was that, and it does make me a little bit emotional because this is something I've worked through a lot in like the past year or so. And it was that I developed this idea that love, so that I could help my mom, that love, and she kind of had a similar mindset too, but we didn't know we were doing it, was that love was expressing my needs as little as possible, because I didn't want to burden her because she was already so tired. Oh. And I just remember, being, 14, 15, 16, in my teen years, just like going through a lot of things alone, not because she didn't want to be there for me, but because I thought I was showing her love by not involving her. And kids, like, I didn't know, and I kind of, and she wouldn't have known, but I think if there's something that I would talk to parents about, it's that talking to your kids about, especially if you have a kid that like tends to be very independent, is the go-getter, talk to them about, are they actually fine when they're saying that they're fine? And the other thing that I would say to that too, something that I really loved that my mom did, is that there was a lot of emotional openness, and nothing was on the hush hush. Like she was open to us asking questions about what was going on. I knew there was a safe space for my emotions, and like I am so grateful that I did have an emotional safe space as we were moving through that. And part of that, something I really loved that my mom did, was the way she told my dad told us about his diagnosis. Instead of sitting us down, and he was diagnosed when I was 11, 12. Instead of sitting us down and just being like, your dad's gonna die, because they had given him 2 to 5 years to live upon diagnosis. She really eased us into it, and in retrospect, I'm really grateful for that. Mm-hmm. That she was like, there's kind of some like weird stuff going on with your dad's body, and you can kind of see like his hands are twitching, and that's a little unusual. And my dad would kind of like crack jokes, and he would try and keep it light, which I think was really awesome in a lot of ways. We joked a lot about the weird things that his body was doing. And then we kind of slowly eased into it. And then, she would kind of show us videos, like, these are some people that are a little bit like later stage ALS, like in this, this could kind of be what we're working with. And granted, there was a point, I remember watching a video of Steve Gleason, famous football player with ALS, that showed him in a wheelchair, and I was in my dad's office. I was like 13, like realizing like this was my dad's future. And so there was still a moment where it was like, oh my gosh, like very scary. But I would say that as well. I think easing a child into what's happening, I think the sit down conversation, complete life shake all in one setting can be scary. So kind of easing them into it, maybe. Yeah.
That's incredible. You also gave me a couple of minutes to like dry up most of my tears as you were talking. Thanks for saying that. That is a phenomenal level of self-awareness to get to. That maybe you were holding back on having your needs met and you were thinking that is love. And that makes me really sad because I think of my own, especially my eldest daughter, but obviously my youngest daughter too, but she wouldn't have known much of that part of life. Yeah. But oh my goodness, I mean, that's a big one. And for you and your mom to realize that. And it is those patterns and those workarounds that just become normal everyday life. I mentioned to you at another point on your podcast, about a client saying that she couldn't see the label because she was inside the jar, but that was about her own symptoms. But, everyone else, when there is a diagnosis of anybody, everybody has a part of the diagnosis, right? Because it affects everyone. What would you like people to know about being the child of someone that had a chronic illness?
I would say what I want people to know. This is kind of obvious, but I guess once they become your adult children, I think there's going to be a lot more like conversations and talks and like processing of what actually went down. It also brings me back to that topic of like, because people, I guess I can only speak from my experience, because children handle something like that all very differently. And for me, it was very much like lock in. It was like create a sense of safety for myself. Whereas my sister, her body went more of the approach of like flee from it, like be away, and kind of like not be in the house. And so I guess I would also say too is, your children are all going to handle it differently. And also like try not to judge too much the way you or your children or really your family are handling or did handle a chronic illness. Like this is crazy shit. Like this is unprecedented territory. And I think we pass a lot of judgment on how people handle traumatic situations. It's like, girl, you were doing the best you could do. And so I think, providing grace simultaneously as you and maybe even your kids are healing from the effects of some of that occurrence happening.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great answer. Many young people feel overwhelmed and lost just in daily life anyway, even without the added stress of having a family member or a parent with chronic illness. What advice would you give to those children who are dealing with it right now to try and figure out their place in the world?
Thinking of, my 16-year-old self, what I would say to her. A few things come to mind. I think, and this is not always the advice to give to everyone. There's a time and place for this advice, but like life was so good too. And there is, despite some of the horrors, there's so much good stuff. And I think the older I get and the more I get out of that situation, that everything, like the good comes with the bad. And each time that happens, you're expanding your capacity for discomfort. And it's kind of annoying, but also exciting because you're expanding your capacity for resilience and empathy for yourself and the people around you. And so, I guess like my thought regarding advice is try and see it for everything that it is. I think we can either get really negative about what's occurring in our life, or even like toxically positive of like, I'm fine, I'm grateful, people have it worse. When it really, it's viewing it and accepting your humanness and your situation for everything that it is.
I love that. Thank you. I always say that the definition of love, and this isn't mine, by the way, I heard it from someone else, that the definition of love is accepting someone, whether it's someone else or yourself, for exactly as you are and exactly as you aren't.
Yeah.
It's like fully and wholly, which I think is so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. You talk a lot about emotional resilience in your work. How do you personally manage like uncertainty and stress now, and what practices have helped you the most?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I mentioned, because of, I think a lot of it had to do with my growing up, and even prior to my dad being sick. We had a pretty angry home. We were pretty yelling communicators. And I think because of like the combination of those things, I had a lot of need to regulate anxiety as a teen, and just like my body being nervous for no reason, and as an adult now. And I think stuff that's really helped with that, as far as like regulating my nervous system, letting my body know that I'm not in danger. Meditation has been a huge part of that. Obviously therapy has been a big part of that. And I will say for that, I am someone that feels very strongly that you do need to go a little bit deeper than just like talk therapy. I think you need the somatic techniques as well. You need the emotional processing. If you're, I mean, quite honestly, like I'm gonna speak frankly, if you're going to a therapist that you feel like can't teach you anything, or if you feel that way about going to therapy, you're going to the wrong therapist, or they're not using methods that are going to work for you. And there's a lot of different methods out there. Yeah. So yeah, therapy's been a huge help. And really, I think as someone that was very, I'm fine, I can like push through, emotional processing has been a big thing for me. There's a technique called self-havening people can look into that's been really great for me. And also, I actually, as someone that just was very like, I'm fine, I would analyze my emotions, but I wouldn't really feel them. And so now, like, this is a practice I developed about a year ago. Now I will, and I don't like journaling, I don't like to write, it's like too laborious, and when I do, it's on my laptop. But something a technique I decided on with my therapist was when I am handling something really difficult, there's a lot of emotions coming up, I actually sit down and I use Otter AI. I don't know if you use Otter AI.
I do. Okay? I transcribe all my calls.
There's the app on your phone. I turn it on and I lay on the couch and I set it on my chest and I talk about everything that I'm feeling. And I yell as much as I want. I cry as much as I want. And I feel it to the extent I allow myself to feel as sorry for myself as I want. And I feel it for that extended period of time while it's recording. And then when I hit stop, I can go back and it transcribes it so I can go back and read. And I can go back on it later in the year and I can reflect on how I was feeling and I can go back and, it's a very similar concept as journaling. I just don't like writing.
I love that.
And it sounds kind of weird and a little bit like meta, but it is so helpful. It's so helpful. And so I think finding your outlet for emotional processing can look different for everyone, but that's what it looks like for me.
Yeah. I love that. Would you like one more tip on top of that?
This episode of Talk Healing to Me is sponsored by Clean Boss, created by Joy Mangano, the legendary inventor behind the Miracle Mop and a pioneer in clean innovation. Clean Boss is a botanical disinfectant that kills 99.9% of viruses, germs, and bacteria. It's safe for food surfaces, soft surfaces, and baby high chairs with no toxic ingredients and no rinse required. It's also a degreaser, odor eliminator, and all-purpose cleaner that works as hard as the chemical-heavy stuff without the health risks. Check it out at getcleanboss.com/Karen for a clean, better and living safer life.
Please.
This is not medical advice, by the way. I just need to say this. But what you can do, and I've experimented this with my team on lots of different topics. I did with my kids and my partner as well. You can record that stuff, and then if you put in a prompt into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, act as an award-winning therapist. Take this, and then what advice would you give?" I got it to do my schedule recently and said, "Act as an operations director. This is what I have on this week and this is what I have on the next week. How would you best manage my schedule?"
Yeah.
And I wrote out a whole thing for me. So if you're already transcribing how it is that you're feeling, see what comes out.
Yeah.
Not saying to trust it. Again, this is not advice.
It's self-reflecting. Well, the interesting thing too, it automatically gives me action items because it's like AI. A lot of people use it for business, and it'll be like, Livy needs to have a conversation with this person about the way if she's feeling. And like, honestly, some of it I do. I'm like, some of these are good. And it's, yeah, I mean, again, it's a little meta, but it works for me. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
You wrote your book in a letter to a best friend format. Tell me why that format and what do you think it brings to people?
That's such a good question. No one's ever asked me that. Yeah, I was very specific when I wrote my book. Instead of it saying by Livi Redden, I wanted it to say sincerely your friend Livi Redden, because I wanted it to be very clear that what I was doing was not trying to tell people how to live their life, but giving them insights into my own, telling them to take what works and what doesn't, and kind of letting myself be a bit of a sacrifice of like, here's behind my smoke and mirrors. Hopefully that can help you feel seen. And so that was sort of the reason why I wanted it to be very much like a letter, where it was more so about hoping people could feel seen in my writing, as opposed to like, here's how you should do it. And I think a lot of like self-help type books are starting to become more that as well. And those are the type of books that work the best for me as well. So
I love that. That. I've listened obviously to your TED Talk, and you say so many valuable things in there. And I really hear your passion about giving 20-somethings and teenagers the resources that they need to really thrive and really be themselves and live the life that they want and deserve. What do you wish was taught in schools that isn't being taught right now?
It's funny. It's emotional education, and I wish it was. I wish we could teach it more, not only at schools but in the home. But we, parents, we haven't really talked about this in previous generations. Like, it's no one's fault that we haven't really done this. But particularly in schools, I would love to see just like a little bit more emotional awareness like brought into the curriculums. And that's actually initially the route I was thinking about going. And I've done nonprofit work in that space of bringing social emotional learning into elementary schools, and how transformative it is for kids. Like, for example, a friend of mine, Jay, he works with a lot of schools in LA, bringing social emotional learning into their schools. And like one school they brought social emotional learning into, which is essentially, for anyone that hasn't heard that phrase, social emotional learning is the ability to express your emotions, giving you vocabulary for your emotions, being able to interact and communicate with like the society around you, and also be able to regulate your nervous system. It's a lot of stuff around that. And they brought social emotional learning into this school, and 5 years later, their gang-related violence went down 90%. 90%.
Oh my goodness.
And they had a lot of struggles in that school with kids with suicidal ideation and taking their own lives. That, I think the statistic was that went down by 85%. They had much less cases of kids, wanting to take their life. And it's just like this And it wasn't anything that crazy. They were opening classes by saying, hey, take note of how you're feeling. Write it down, you know? We have a meditation room. If you want to take a second from class, you can go to the meditation room. Like, it's very simple, and honestly, it's very logical. Like, I am of the belief that learning to work with the emotional sides of being a human, it's a very like logical decision to give people those tools, because we're creating people that can, handle day-to-day stress more. Like, if you're looking at it from just like because like so much of education, it's also a business, and like it makes sense to give people emotional skills.
Absolutely. Imagine what the difference in the world would be if every kid grew up knowing how to manage their nervous system.
Yeah. And I feel so passionate about it too, because the core of honestly, I would say the majority of violence, of war, of systemic oppressions across the world at its core comes from a lack of emotional skills that results in a lack of empathy, that results in the inability to communicate and compromise. And it all ends up drawing back to emotional intelligence and EQ, really.
Yeah. Livy, you are such a remarkable human being, and I feel so privileged to call you my friend, and I'm so happy that you've come on this podcast. And I know everything that you've done is so impressive. And I also know that it's only the beginning. And I mean that to land in the most non-condescending or non-patronizing way. You really are a force to be reckoned with. And congratulations on everything that you've done. It's phenomenal. I absolutely tip my hat to you.
Thanks.
I want to ask you in a moment where people can find you. But before that, I want to do our quick fire round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
We've got 10 questions. We're going to rock through them.
Cool.
The first one is, if you followed your childhood dream, what would you be doing now?
I would be a game show host or an optometrist. That's what I wanted to be as a child. One of those.
I can see the game show host. Talk to me about optometrist.
I liked eyes. I don't know. I did a project on it in like 3rd or 4th grade, and I just became really interested in eyes. And then also I had read this quote when I was in like middle school, and it said something. I like poetry. I was a cornball, whatever. And there was a quote that said, like, you've never looked into somebody's eyes and thought they weren't beautiful. Like, it's something that is really like unarguably a beautiful piece of humanness. And so I don't know. I had a thing for eyes.
Well, I thought I liked you loads, and now I like you even more hearing that. That's very beautiful. What advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say keep doing exactly what you're doing. Like, she was so cool, and I was just like, I just say hats off, honestly, for the expression and the desire for growth. I have such love for little Livy. Yeah.
I love that. Number 3, who inspires you the most?
Oh, the most. I mean, I guess my mind automatically goes to my mom. And she's just someone that's fundamentally helped me like be where I am. And she's like, I really feel like in any timeline, even if I wasn't her daughter, there's like a soul bond there. Like, she's like one of my soulmates, honestly.
Well, you're going to start me crying again. Jesus. Was there a particular... I have to move on because I will actually start crying. Was there a particularly dark day that turned into a positive, and what was the lesson?
Just like from whenever?
Yeah.
A particularly dark day, I would say a lot of what required me to learn how to ask for help again realizing how much my childhood had affected me was when I withdrew from antidepressants about 1.5 years ago. And I was in a space where my thoughts had gotten darker than I ever thought they could or had previously. And I had a real reckoning of like, this is holy shit. Like, this is really serious. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse on
No,
your
you
podcast.
can curse away. I'm Irish.
And I had a real, like, I had like a pretty bad panic attack the day before. And I've only had a handful of panic attacks, like real true panic attacks in my life. And I was like, we got to start asking for help. And that was sort of the takeaway, where I was like, and people want to help you. Look at the love that is surrounding you. When I was going through that, I'd had so many beautiful people ready to be there for me. And I'm like, so ask, like, so that was the takeaway.
That's a beautiful takeaway. What does your ideal day or your perfect day consist of?
Perfect day, I would say, I'd probably get up, I'd go to a very homey feeling coffee shop. I'd get a cappuccino and I'd probably read, and I'd be around, then I would probably be around my family. Like, I love my family so much. They're my people. Probably go do something with my family. Maybe there'd be some stand-up involved. I'd go outside. Nothing too crazy. I'd probably eat some good food. Yeah.
That
I don't
sounds
know.
like a gorgeous
just
day.
To pet my dog, I would just chill.
I
And I
love
would
that.
laugh. Yeah.
That's a perfect day. Speaking of food, though, if you had a roast dinner, when I say roast dinner, I mean like a Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, something like that, if you celebrate, and you'd like your roast potatoes and maybe chicken or some kind of protein and vegetables and whatever else, do you eat your favorite thing first, your favorite thing last, or a little bit of everything together?
If I'm eating a meal with a bunch of different foods.
Yeah.
I'm probably favorite thing last. Like, I wouldn't even have like a bite of it until...
What would the favorite thing be on the plate then for you?
Well, it depends. I guess is this because I like a dessert, so I'm like,
No, this is in one
the
meal.
food.
Yeah.
Trying to think.
Like, are you a meat eater?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
say you had chicken, roast potatoes, carrots, and broccoli. What are you eating
Oh,
first?
if
What are
I'm
you eating
doing
last?
that, I guess I'm probably eating it like all together. But I'm probably, I don't know, when I eat my food, I do it very like in parts, like it all happens very evenly. Like
I'm the same.
there's a method, So favorite thing on there, I do love like a really well cooked steak, I really love like Moroccan and Indian food.
Yeah, but if it's on your plate and say you have a favorite thing, so say it's Moroccan food.
Okay.
Say it's meatballs
yeah.
or something. Are you waiting and eating the meatball by itself last and eating everything else around it first?
No, because I feel like the stuff around it makes the meatball better. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
So-
feel like I'll like dabble around, but the very last bite would be the meatball or whatever it is. Okay. The very last bite will be that, but
Nice.
I'll eat it. I'll dabble around.
You've no idea how interested I am in the methodology that people have of eating their food. I love that answer.
Interesting. I feel like you can learn a lot about someone if you watch how they eat an acai bowl.
Absolutely.
It shows you how their brain works. I'm so serious. Yeah.
Let's go get an acai bowl after this. So this is question number 7. If you had 3 people to bring to dinner that were either past or alive, who would you invite?
Ooh, I don't know. Honestly, I would probably I have a real deep connection to my ancestors, and I love ancestral history. Part of the reason I was in Ireland, my grandma, Miss Salanoa, I would bring her to dinner. And I would bring my like 7th great grandma. She's a really interesting immigration story on my mom's side. I would bring her to dinner. And then we have a woman from like thousands and thousands of years ago, really interesting story, who was like in a royal family, and her story is very fascinating. I would love to like sit with the 3 of them.
Nice.
And just, because I'm also like a spiritual person, and I believe they're like around me anyway, and I would love to just have a chat.
Nice. Oh, I love that. How interesting. I need to go back and do some family ancestry. Question number 8, your favorite song?
Favorite song? I don't know if I have do I have a favorite song? I just rewatched La La Land, and I do really love the soundtrack of La La Land.
Oh, cute.
So it could be that, or also, I don't know, there's a few albums I like. I don't know if I have a favorite song, but
I know it's a tough one,
I just
isn't it?
listened to the La La Land soundtrack again, and I love it. It's just good. Yeah. Oh, actually, I will say this. There is 1960s live performance of Ella Fitzgerald in Berlin. She's singing Mac the Knife. And I loved, like, I need that song injected into my veins. That woman ran so Frank Sinatra could walk.
Amen.
Like, I love Ella Fitzgerald, and I love that song. I love that whole live album. I love her. I would say that as well.
I love that you are such an old soul. I love it. I love it. What is the book that you gift the most?
I gift the most. I do give people my book a lot.
That was the right answer.
But also, I love The Alchemist. I know it's like a very common answer, but I read that book usually like once a year. And I love that book. I love
Amazing.
The Alchemist, yeah.
Make sure you say the name of your book though as well.
My book is The Sooner You Know, the Better.
Nice one, thank you.
Yeah.
And then last question, how do you switch off?
I switch off. It's interesting you say that, because I have had to really create a wind down routine with my therapist, because actually I've had a weird relationship with sleep a lot of my life. A lot of people are very excited to get into their bed. I've never felt that way. So it's been interesting to figure that out.
Okay.
And so yeah, I'll light a candle. My room is colors that I really like. And I'll usually drink some like kava tea, and I'll read like a chapter of a book. And that's probably it. I listen to jazz while I brush my teeth. Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't want to brush their teeth for 20 minutes then?
Yeah, exactly. I try and ease in, which was not always the case, but it's been a big priority for me this past like 6 months, especially. So.
Well, congratulations on that. Please tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, just at Livi Redden, LiviRedden. Podcast is Today is the Future. Pretty much anywhere you stream podcasts. My book, The Sooner You Know, the Better, is available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or pretty much any big Target, any like big book retailers. And I'm around. My email as well is just liviredden@gmail. So if you want to send me an email or a DM on Instagram as well, I'll reply eventually.
Thank you for joining the Talk Healing to Me podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you to our sponsors of this episode. You can visit getcleanboss.com/Karen. And also a thank you to our video and podcast producer and editor, Aoife McNamara at Imagine Media. Thank you.